to introduce myself first, I'm a registered dietitian. My name is Molly Kimball. My full-time job is with Elmwood Fitness Center. We're owned by Ochsner Health System. One of the new things that we've actually recently implemented, about a year ago, we launched it March 2013, is something called Eat Fit NOLA. And so that's actually healthy, nutritious menu items, and so I'll be telling y'all more about that, but it's citywide. So right now we've got like almost 40 restaurants on board. So rumor has it that the music students are known for not being the healthiest, most nutritious bunch. And so there's all kinds of other lifestyle issues that are going to be tied into being in the music industry, but at least if we can look at how you're fueling your body food-wise, a lot of our local restaurants, we're looking at things like restaurants like Magazine over on Magazine Street, Latai Uptown, Fresh Bar. Those tickets that they had y'all, whenever y'all came in, if you didn't get a ticket, be sure you got one. We'll be drawing it at the end because we have gift certificates from Latai Uptown, gift certificates from Fresh Bar. Rouse's is giving y'all some. We have a partnership with Rouse's to identify the legitimately healthy stuff on their aisles. So I'll be telling y'all more about that. But I wanted to introduce Katie. She is here. She's with the Sodexo team here on site at Loyola. And a lot of what we're doing with our restaurants with Eat Fit NOLA, they're incorporating that and another initiative here that she wanted to tell you guys about.
Hi. I'm Katie. I'm the marketing manager for Sodexo here on Loyola's campus. Along with what Molly said, we launched a program called Mindful that we're running in the OR and then out in retail this October. And some of the highlights of the program I just wanted to share with y'all are meals and entrees that fill your plate with fewer than 600 calories, dishes flavored with fresh herbs and spices and less sodium, desserts with less than 200 calories and at least 1 gram of fiber, less refined sugar, and more fresh fruit, less than 10% of calories from saturated fats in all our menu selections, easy to understand nutrition facts and visual ingredients, and then we also have barcodes on all of our menus in the OR that are mindful, that give you all the nutrition facts, whole grains, local, gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, and then also you can find on our Simply to Go items, all the nutrition facts are available, the fiber content, the protein, fat, calories. And then another thing, we're very proud to say we've loaded all of our Sodexo menus into MyFitnessPal. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with the app, but you can look at any menu item in the OR and that has the Mindful logo on it, and fill in the title into the app, and it gives you all the nutrition, the portion that you should be intaking, exactly how many calories. So everything's available to you here. I don't know if you know that or not, if you eat in the OR, if you don't, we have plenty of items in retail, in the market. But we also have a website, mindful.sodexo.com, that could give you more education on the program. But 2 to 3 times a week we have a mindful menu item in the OR. So also we have a gluten-free station that's dedicated to mindful eating as well. Might not be a planned meal item, but we're very health conscious in our resident dining hall. So that's about it. Just want to let y'all know.
And I've asked Katie to stay up here with me in case you'll have questions. Plus, it's a frightful thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a lot of faces here, and it's like, you know, I feel like y'all have such cool professions and all this, and we're like, all right, we're not the finger-wagging dietitians for sure. We're going to try to show you how to make things easier. But it can be a little bit intimidating talking to a couple of hundred college students. So what we're talking about, what the presentation is, and as I'm going, I'll tell y'all more about Eat Fit NOLA. I'll tell y'all more about the initiatives we have. One thing, though, that we're really excited about is Eat Fit NOLA, that restaurant partnership I mentioned to you, is completely free to any restaurant in the city. It's like legitimately a community service. So even if you say, you know, and we'll kind of talk about why nutrition is important, but if you've got your favorite places, that's the little neighborhood hole in the wall around the corner from you, and you're like, you know, I'd really actually like to know that I can go there at whatever time and actually get something that I'm not feeling, you know, loaded down after I eat it. There's a lot of, it's completely free. Just tell me, hey, I want this restaurant to be on it, or tell that restaurant. we want you to be part of this, and we don't charge them anything. So we're really, really excited because there's nothing else like it in the country that does this with our local restaurant. So it's not a big chain thing, it's all of our local guys here. So our topic today, though, is performance fueling. And actually, I was saying, to Katie and to the Professor Snyder, who I don't know, do y'all call him John or? John, that's what I thought. He doesn't seem like a Mr. or Dr. Snyder. He seems more like a John. So anyway, I was saying to him, we have this, the topic that I usually do, my specialty as a dietitian is more as a sports dietitian. So what I work with athletes, I work with them for performance, for recovery. How are they going to fuel this performance? What are they going to eat to maximize their energy, their power, their output? And a lot of those same things that are going to apply to my athletes, those same principles are going to apply to you guys if you're going to be in something that's going to be an intense practice or performance that's going to be lasting for hours or longer. So a lot of the same things will apply here. So when we're talking about, I hope that y'all can see this some, when we're talking about nutrition, a lot of people will say, I'm the same weight I was in high school, my clothes fit just fine, I'm a healthy weight. Okay, that's fine. Weight's not all that it is. If you're waking up and you're feeling completely run down, you're exhausted, if you're halfway through your day and you're like, all you can think about is like getting back in the bed, something's going on. It might be sleep, it might be other things, but a lot of what that is how we're fueling your body, And so even if it's from when you wake up, depending on when your day starts, it might be, 6 hours, 8 hours into your day, you're bottoming out. A lot of that's going to be related to what are you choosing after you wake up. Those first few hours are going to really be directly related to that energy and that performance later. So it's going to be your performance, energy, your endurance, your recovery, as well as things like body fat, your hair, skin, nails, all these other things are going to be tied to it. But it's always amazing to me how many people might come in for a nutrition appointment and their main goal is body fat, but they actually get that side benefit of feeling so much better, and they actually didn't realize how much like crap they were feeling until they started changing how they ate. And a lot of times it's such a subtle thing, they don't realize it until maybe they go on vacation, they revert back to their old behaviors. They go, man, I felt awful all the time and I really didn't realize it. So how we eat can really affect all that. So some of this I'll kind of go through fast. I want to be sure we've got time if there's any questions that you guys have, and I have a ton of stuff in here. So I'm going to breeze through it, but y'all are going to be getting, if you want this emailed to you, you can have this presentation emailed. I also have a brand-specific grocery list that I have that they're going to be, and it's Rouse's, but you could use it anywhere. So as I'm talking about high-protein bars or cereals or crackers or bread, like we have which brands to buy. Because the message of get whole grain bread or whole grain cracker, all the marketing can just be so misleading on the front. So we've got a brand-specific shopping list if y'all are interested in that you can get at Walmart, Rouse's, any of those places. We also have some information on Eat Fit NOLA, the program I was telling you about, and then I also have a fast food guide. So we've gone through a lot of the different major fast food restaurants and saying, if you're going to do it, here's your decent picks, and if you're going to do fast food, here's your top picks. So all that stuff, they'll be emailing to y'all later. So I just want to kind of breeze through a lot of stuff, then leave time for questions. So when we're looking at a couple of things, when we're first looking at performance fueling, so it's especially going to be if there's multiple practices or performances a day, if it's going to be something that's extended several hours, if it's going to be something that's particularly intense, especially if you're combining that maybe with lack of sleep, how we eat is going to be key with all of this. So when we're looking at, the first thing that we look at as far as nutrition goes, before you even look at what you eat, is the timing. So does anybody, what's the different times that everybody's waking up to start your day? School Monday through Friday. I think I heard 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. So it doesn't matter, as far as what time your day is, and those of you who might be getting up at 1 p.m., I've got a feeling your day is ending 2, 3 in the morning. So I might say morning or when you wake up, just put that to whatever time that is. But when you're looking at metabolism and you're looking at what can you do to stay as lean as possible, to keep your energy up as much as possible, is trying to close those gaps more than about 4 or 5 hours without eating. The people with the highest percentage of body fat that I meet with eat once a day. They skip breakfast, they skip lunch, they're just eating 1 meal a day. They have the greatest percentage of body fat. So it doesn't matter what your schedule is or what your waking and sleeping hours are, but from when you wake up, try to have something just within that first 2 hours, and then try not to go more than 4 or 5 hours without eating. And so what that's going to do is it's going to keep your metabolism revved up. Literally, it's going to be like a furnace helping you burn more calories. Once you start going 6 hours, 8-hour stretches without eating, you're actually training your body to store body fat, and instead you're breaking apart muscle. and using that muscle for fuel. So that's the last thing any of us want. We don't want to break apart that. So we've got to keep that timing up, and that's going to be key. We'll talk about protein, fiber, and stuff like that. Kind of the message that I think as far as dietitians we give all the time, and I'm not going to be giving it because I think we hear it all the time, is you should eat more fruits and vegetables. Just make that assumption. Like, I'm assuming y'all have all heard that message. We're going to go past that. I want to kind of give y'all some of the misleading stuff. So when we first look at like timing and what to eat, as far as when to eat through the day, the next thing that I would look at to maximize your energy isn't as much what to put into your body, but it's going to be what not to put into your body. So putting white carbs, putting sugars, white pasta, white rice, soft drinks, the majority of a lot of smoothies, any of those that are going to be high in added sugar, you're going to get that rush of sugar, that rush of blood sugar, but then that crash, and you're going to be bottomed out. So the first thing I would look at is what not to do is try and not to put those white things into your body, the white foods into your body. I know, I hear the giggles on that. The white foods, the white carbs and stuff like that. So, but what Katie was saying as far as the criteria for mindful is that they have a requirement that it has to have a certain amount of fiber. One of the requirements that we use for Eat Fitnola in those restaurants is that there's 0 white carbs. So if you go to Magazine on Magazine Street, you go to Latai Uptown, you go to any of our Eat Fitnola restaurants around here, or the dishes here that are certified Eat Fitnola, 0 white carbs, less than a teaspoon of added sugar. So we're legitimately making these things the things that are going to help you with that energy and that performance. So when we look at what's added sugar, I'll breeze through this, but a lot of the ones on the left, people still think are healthy. Agave, turbinado, if you see at Smoothie King, it says turbinado on the board, that's just sugar. It may seem healthier, oh, it's raw, it's unrefined or unprocessed sugar, but it's still sugar. The one on the right, if it says enriched wheat flour, still it's just white flour, potato flour. Is anybody here gluten-free, or has to be? So if you're doing a lot of the grains that are gluten-free alternatives, potato starch, tapioca starch, white rice flours, those things, they may be gluten-free, but they're not wholesome. So trying to still, steer clear of that stuff because it might be marketed like it's better, but it's really not. More stuff, a lot of the gluten-free stuff like pretzels, marketed like they're healthy, they're not. So turn over the ingredients on something like pretzels. It's basically like white bread with better PR. Because if you look at the ingredients, it's enriched wheat flour, it's usually going to be corn syrup, it's going to be those exact same ingredients that you're going to have in just sliced white bread, but it's marketed as the healthy snack. So if you're like, okay, I'm bottomed out, I need some energy, I'm going to get a healthy snack, you hit the vending machine, you get pretzels, those big grabs of pretzels are going to be like you just ate 4 or 5 slices of bunny bread, and that's it, nothing else with it. So a lot of these things I'm kind of saying, okay, here's what not to do, but I want to kind of open your eyes to the marketing on these things that they're promoted to us as if they're healthy options, they're not. So we'll look at some other things. Anything that I'm missing? Okay. A lot of things like Cliff Bars, smoothies, like we said, a lot of those things, the Special K brand, all their shakes and protein bars, really, really high sugar. So, but they're called protein shakes, protein bars. You might think you're doing it because it's healthy. It has almost twice as much sugar as protein. So just kind of start looking beyond what's that marketing on the front of the product for us. So what we want to do is emphasize like fiber-rich carbs. And so that's going to be the obvious, like we said, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Y'all don't need me to tell y'all that. Those are the things that are good for us. What I want y'all to be aware of is that bottom line, that inulin or chicory root. And so the way that I remember those two names, it's like insulin without the S, or chicory root, think about chicory coffee. Those are basically isolated fibers. And so they're going to be in things like the Fiber One bar. Does anybody eat Fiber One bars? There's got to be a few. Raise it, be proud, be proud. Are you eating it because you like it or because it's good for you? Okay. So people like it, they're like, it's got my fiber, it tastes like a candy bar. But when you look at Fiber One cereal, that's the pellets. Nobody really ever poured that into a bowl and took a spoonful of it and said, this is good. The first ingredient, you can't really see it, but it's corn bran, whole grain bran, all this stuff. But when you look at the Fiber One bar, the first ingredient is chicory root. Since they're listed in order of weight, that means there's more chicory root. And basically what that is, I kind of jumped ahead, the inulin or the chicory root, our bodies don't digest them. So they're classed as dietary fibers. They look like sweet and low. Like if you just looked at it, felt it, it looks like sweet and low. So food makers can add it to products, jacks up the fiber count on the label, but it doesn't affect the taste or the texture of that food. So if you're eating that bar and you said, oh, it's 140 calories, it's a sweet treat, keeps me out of that sleeve of Oreos or whatever else, that's fine. But if you're eating it thinking you're getting 9 grams of fiber, you're really not. So if you're having it because you go, man, it's a good dessert, that's okay. But that's where the misleading marketing on some of these things comes. So that grocery list I was telling y'all that y'all be getting emailed later, I have what to look for on these things. So we want to try to get real fiber, whole food fiber. Like she was saying, the mindful meals here, they're centered on whole wheat pasta, brown rice, sweet potatoes, all those things that are real whole food fibers, not these isolated fibers that are kind of phony fibers used to jack up the label count. Protein is one thing that kind of, I gender stereotype on this. Guys tend to get enough protein. Girls, a lot of times they're reaching for stuff that, they may make a sandwich, they put a real thin slice of turkey, they might have a salad that's got tons of veggies, but maybe not enough turkey or whatever protein on it. What I'll usually look at as far as how much to have at each time is going to be about the size of your palm minus your fingers. And that's going to be relative to your body. So especially if I've got, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and they're totally different sizes, and she's preparing whatever, making a sandwich for both of them, he might need twice as much. So basically it's relative to your body. For a lot of girls, that's going to be 3 ounces, 5 ounces. For a lot of guys, it might be 6, 8 ounces. But that's usually how much I'll say to have at lunch and at dinner. But then still making sure you get that protein with whatever that first meal of the day is, whatever your snacks are. So something like just a piece of fruit, there's no protein with it. So putting some nuts with it, cheese with it. I would never have someone do just a piece of fruit to make that a standalone snack that's really going to sustain you. Whole grain crackers, any of that stuff, we still want to pair that protein with it. The protein is actually going to help to increase your energy, increase your focus, increase your alertness. So if you have just those carbs by themselves, you got that rapid release, even if it's whole grain carb, and then that drop, that protein is going to be more sustaining, increase, and keeping that focus up. So that's probably going to be one of the biggest takeaways, I would say. Any questions on that? Sources of protein, this is kind of, a lot of people know this, but keeping it like your lean meats or poultry or seafood and stuff like that. Cottage cheese, does anybody like it? People like my grandma used to have it, but cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, there's several versions of Greek yogurt now that are flavored that still don't have artificial sweetener and they're low sugar. Simply Chobani is one. Does anybody go to Fresh Market? It's kind of expensive, but I see a few nods. If you're at Fresh Market, there's a Greek yogurt called Sophie. It's a flavored Greek yogurt, low sugar, but no artificial sweetener. So those are the 2 flavored Greek yogurts that I usually recommend. Protein powders, making a shake could be easy. Protein bars. A lot of protein bars, though, like we were saying about the Special K, they look better than what they really are. The one on the left is Kashi, so they have 2 that are good. And again, this will be on your grocery list, but I chose these 3 bars because they're pretty easy to find, and they're some of the few bars, especially the first 2, that you can get at a regular grocery store that have more protein than sugar. So if you go, I'm always on the go, I need something I can just throw in my backpack, I don't want to have something that's refrigerated, those first 2 are going to be your cheapest bets too. So Kashi has one, the flavors are honey almond flax, another one's peanut butter. The next one is Nature Valley, but it's specifically the protein version of it. So those are going to be at any grocery store that you go to. The next one, Think Thin, that's at GNC's, places like that, but it's also at Sam's now. So take a look for that. And those would be some that are high protein, especially the Think Thin, low sugar. These are the ones that I think a lot of people see the labeling and think that they're good, but you look at the sugar ratio to the protein, and they're a lot more. So these are the ones that I wouldn't necessarily recommend as much. Any questions on it? This group, sorry, that was loud. This, I would say, as far as like for meals or like lunch, dinner, breakfast, do you cook or do you have a kitchen? So eggs are one of the cheapest ones. And I don't go with just egg whites. I would have you do maybe 1, 2 whole eggs and then a bunch of egg whites. The egg whites are just pure protein, but the egg yolks have some nutrients in it that help with brain health, fat metabolism that are hard to get in other foods. So if I have someone doing 1 or 2 eggs and then the rest egg whites, that's easy and it's cheap. The Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, turkey. I don't mind even freshly sliced deli meats. The sodium is going to be higher, but if someone doesn't have high blood pressure, and I mean most young people don't, and especially if we're out here, we're sweating a lot, I'm not too worried about that. Yeah. Sodium, I'm not even mentioning to you guys. That's kind of the least of my concerns. What's really a lot more of a concern for me is that frequency, getting y'all to eat more often through the day, keep that energy up, get rid of the white carbs, those added sugars, and getting that protein in at those regular intervals. Those are kind of my three main things I would say are priorities for y'all. The sodium, it's at the bottom of my list of priorities for the majority of you. Fat, we always just go low fat, or moderate fat. We don't go low fat at all. The Eat Fit NOLA guidelines that we actually use the American Heart Association's upper limit, 10% from saturated fat. We actually do just animal-based saturated fats, because there are actually some plant-based saturated fats, even avocado, olive oil that has saturated fat, but it's not bad for us. So we only limit the animal-based just because that's kind of what the American Heart Association says. But we always have, if you go too low in fat, which that really isn't a problem for most people, but if they do, it interferes with hormone production, everything. So we've got to make sure that you're not going too low in fat. So when we're looking at how much would any of y'all say, I mean, you can just like raise your hands as far as if you've got, you know, whatever type of practice, if you've got whatever type of performance, any kind of event where you're going 3-4 hours and you're feeling just completely depleted after. I mean, do you feel like you need to look at how are you eating after for that recovery, or do you feel like you're really not that intense? It's not seeming as much. Okay, so this is something that if I've got someone who's an Ironman person, they're doing a marathon, I'm really caring right after whatever it is that they're done with that session where that energy output is happening. There's a window of about 20 to 30 minutes after that your body's going to be most sensitive to that recovery. And recovery means you don't feel stale the next day. You don't feel weighted down and heavy the next day. You feel fresh. You feel energized. So just in a quick nutshell on that, what you want to look for optimal recovery is a ratio of about 4-to-1 carbs to protein. That's what's in chocolate milk. So if you hear people say that's ideal recovery thing, that's why it's that 4-to-1 carb to protein. Same thing like if you had a Subway sandwich or something, or the equivalent from Sodexo here. But having that, and also having it shortly after that energy output is what's going to be huge for muscle recovery. I won't spend a ton of time on this as far as recovery because I've got other stuff I want to talk with y'all about, and time-wise we're probably. Carbs, we kind of talked about that too, but if you're looking at how am I going to keep my energy up, or if you know that you've got, you know, just whatever it is, either like a really long practice, a really long set, and you know you're going to have to keep that energy up, carbs are the quickest source of energy for our bodies, but having that source of carb, putting some of that protein with it, I mean, the easiest thing really is grabbing something like a Subway. Y'all have Smoothie King here, right? So sorry to bash the Smoothie King on that turbinado thing, but if you're at Smoothie King, one of the things they have is something that's a high-protein smoothie. People sometimes get steered away from it. It's under the build up board. So if someone says, I don't want to build up, I'm trying to lean out, their eye doesn't even go to it, but it's the high protein smoothie, the almond mocha and the chocolate. You can ask it to be made with no turbinado. And you're looking at basically 30-something grams of protein, still a decent bit of carbs, but only 14 sugar, and that's compared to 80, 90, or 100 grams of sugar in some of the other ones. So it's that high protein smoothie. Request it without turbinado is usually my kind of go-to for pretty much anyone who's going to Smoothie King is going to be appropriate. So staying hydrated, this is going to be another huge one. So when someone says I'm tired, like I'm getting tired, you know, that afternoon slump or that evening slump where I'm just exhausted, if you're not well hydrated, and really like even being dehydrated, just 2% of your body weight can lead you to feel fatigued. And that's going to be the first sign of being dehydrated. So a lot of times when we're tired, the first thing we think of is let me grab a Red Bull for that pick-me-up. And having caffeine isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we got to make sure that we're hydrated before we're reaching for that caffeine. So people used to say 8-ounce cups of water. That's not what I go with. Take your body weight, divide it by 2, and that's how many ounces we want to go with for a day. So like this is 20 ounces. So if you're 150 pounds, you need 75 ounces. You need almost 4 of these a day. Or that sounds better, 2 of these. But people say, well, that's a whole lot of water. Like, I'm not a big water drinker, but anything that doesn't have alcohol in it counts towards your fluid intake. And you're like, oh, crap. But it would be nice. But we used to think that caffeine was dehydrating. So we used to think the iced coffee, your tea, dietitians used to say that doesn't count towards your fluid for the day. It's only got to be things that don't have alcohol or caffeine. We now know, though, that the fluid that's in those caffeinated beverages offsets the diuretic effect of that caffeine. So if you're taking a caffeine pill, that's a diuretic. But if you've got coffee, tea, iced coffee, the fluid in there is going to help to offset it. So, and all these things on the board, anything basically that's liquid at room temperature is going to count towards that fluid, so it doesn't have to just be water. Any questions on that? I think I've got a little bit about caffeine here too. Sports drinks. Oh, what I have on here is Iconic. The guys that are in the back here, this is pretty cool. We worked with a local company called Be Well Nutrition, and our nutrition team at Elmwood Fitness Center worked with them, and they came to us and said, hey, if you wanted to make like a grab-and-go drink, what would it be? And so that's what they've got back here for y'all to sample. It's actually, there's nothing else like it on the market because there's a lot of protein drinks that you can grab and go in a carton, but if they're low sugar, they also have artificial sweeteners. Or if they don't have artificial sweeteners, they've got more sugar than what most people need. So the Iconic, the reason that we love it is it's got 20 grams of protein, which is about 3 ounces worth of meat. No artificial sweeteners, it's completely all natural. And again, it's made locally, it's a locally owned company, so we're a big fan of it. And one of those tickets that you guys have is for a case of the Iconic, so, which is a case of 12 of them, so, and y'all can taste it back there. But anyway, I had it on here because, but it doesn't sound like we're looking as much at recovery, but when you're looking at electrolyte type drinks, sports drinks was the first thing we think of that are high in potassium, high in sodium. Iconic, or any type of ready to drink protein drink like that is usually going to be a good source of electrolytes. Coconut water, good source of electrolytes. And so if you're sweating a lot, you don't want to replace just water. You need to replace that sodium as well. Does anybody drink coconut water? The brand Zico, the one that's in the blue bottle, Zico actually has more sodium in it. So if you're one that you're losing lots of sweat and you're looking at replenishing those fluids and you feel like you need those electrolytes, the Zico brand is the one we recommend because most other coconut waters are pretty low in sodium, so you're not going to get the electrolytes. Any questions on that? Caffeine. Most major medical organizations recommend limiting caffeine to about 300 milligrams a day. That's the equivalent of about 3 cups of coffee. To put this in perspective, a Red Bull has about 80 milligrams of caffeine. So there is even a place for that. The problem is that a lot of people will have not just one Red Bull, will have 2, 3 leads to 4, and then you're just really relying on that for energy through the day, whereas maybe we're not doing those kind of fundamental things to fuel our body right. So just keep an eye on how much you're having. A Starbucks kind of grande is about 160 milligrams of caffeine. Quite frankly, I blow that 300 out of the water. There's just a lot of stuff we want to do through the day. I stay well hydrated, I eat well through the day, I try to get enough sleep, but I definitely have more than 300 milligrams of caffeine. That's probably my biggest vice, but it is something that I do try to keep in check because otherwise I know that it can cause rapid heart rate, it can cause me to have more talking to a group like this where your heart starts racing and you're like, oh God, you know. So I realize that I've got to kind of keep it in check for those reasons, but this is just kind of what you should do, but I know a lot of us go above it. I'm not going to talk as much about this because I don't think we need to talk as much about the recovery and all. But I would say that if you've got something that you're going to be out there playing for hours, you know you're going to lose lots of sweat, have something, and a lot of people go, God, I don't want to eat right before, I kind of feel weighted down, but even if you just had something that's light, half an hour before, but make sure you're hydrated. And so having something that is, even if it's a situation where you're going to have alcohol through it, even if you dilute whatever that cocktail is, if you're adding more club soda, whatever it is, to kind of just stretch it and have that a little bit more of a hydrating factor in there. We won't talk about that as much. We've got other stuff. Does anybody ever have it feeling really depleted, like they're losing tons of sweat and they're really, okay. There's a lot of us that sweat a lot. If y'all got close to me, you would feel the heat coming off of me and like a little bit of clamminess going down my back. I sweat so much. And so personally, I'll actually add extra salt to my diet because if not, whenever I work out, whenever I'm running, I'll get intense muscle cramps because I lose so much sweat. If you sweat and when your sweat dries, you can feel that grittiness on your skin, you're also losing a lot of salty sweat. So if you're losing a lot of salt in your sweat and you sweat a lot, we need to be sure that we're getting enough salt back in. These are a couple of the things that I'll add in. One being something like a protein drink like Iconic. Those margarita shot blocks, I don't know, this is more like kind of what my athletes do, but they're basically margarita flavored. They're kind of like jelly beans. So if you're a sweet kind of a person, they're basically just gummy bears or jelly beans. Lots of different flavors, but it's the margarita flavor that actually has more sodium. And it's got carbs in there, so if you kind of feel like you need something to help sustain you and you're really not going to be eating, but you need something to give you fuel, that's what I'll use for my athletes when they need something to get them through 3 hours or 4 hours of endurance exercise. It might be something y'all could do. It'd be something you would get at like Varsity Sports or GNC would sell those, or GNO Cyclery would sell those. They also have salt tablets. I've done those if I'm doing something. I mean, y'all got to really sweat a lot to do those. They don't really taste that good either. But something like those shot blocks could be better. Or sports drinks, even just doing dilute sports drinks to get a little of that sodium in. These probably not as much would I have y'all do. These are some of the ones that we were just saying are higher in sugar. But if you're in a situation where you feel like you need those carbs, you're using almost more like that feels more like you're using so much energy, you need that rapid release of carbs. You don't need protein that's going to take a long time to digest. You need that rapid release. I would do something like the Cliff or the Luna in that case. The only times I'll usually have my clients do those is actually mid-event when they need that rapid release of energy. Alcohol, we've got to talk about that too. So we're talking about energy and we're talking about kind of just the whole balance of everything. We always say the moderate, as dietitians, you have to say what's moderate, and you also kind of have to cover yourself, because once you start talking about alcohol consumption, you got to say this, but what's defined as moderate by like the USDA is not more than a drink a day for women or 2 a day for men. In New Orleans, though, we usually kind of do as an average with our clients. So if it's our female clients, we'll say try to not have more than 7 to 10 a week, and it's up to them how they like disperse those. And then guys, if they try to have not more than 14, 15 a week, and again, it might be, but 14 a week might sound like a lot, but think about how much you really drink, and it's not a lot for a lot of the people that I work with. But then you think, okay, well, if it's maybe 3 or 4 nights a week, but we kind of look at it as an average instead of a daily thing. And that just works more. But when we're looking at alcohol, we've got a couple of things here, addressing some of the misconceptions. So, if someone's concerned about weight or they're concerned about calories, the misconception is that beer is bad or beer is high calorie or beer is high sugar. But when you look at these, that Abita Amber has about 128 calories. That's the same as you're going to get in about a 6-ounce pour of wine. White wine, red wine, carbs and calories are the same also. You're not saving any by doing anything with red wine. And then about 2 ounces of liquor is about the same amount of calories. So the carbs are a little higher in beer, but there's still no sugar in beer. So the sugars are all fermented. So if I'm looking at those, I'll look at those as pretty equal, and then it just comes down to personal preference. So when you're looking at, as John said, okay, what do they do if they have too much alcohol? What can they do to feel better the next day? So a couple of misconceptions. I have on here clear drinks, vodka, gin, white wine. The misconception will be that those are lower sugar, or that darker liquors are higher in sugar, higher in calories. They're not. But the darker liquors actually have compounds in them that can make a hangover worse. So from a carb, calorie, any of that kind of a standpoint, they're pretty much exactly the same. It's just those compounds in there that can worsen a hangover in the darker liquors. So the lighter is going to help with that. Staying hydrated, even if someone's drinking a lot through the night, if you're at least continuing to stay hydrated, that's going to help you not feel horrible the next day. Even if you're not one to pace yourself as much through the night, trying to remind yourself to have just like a ton of fluid when you get home, and ideally something like that Zico coconut water. Something's going to also give you the electrolytes. If you get the case of Iconic, have something like that. Getting those electrolytes in you, getting those fluids in you are going to help you not feel terrible the next day. So hydrating, emergency, those packets that you can add to a bottle of water, those are going to be good electrolytes, and it helps you get more fluid in you. And then before you go to bed, there's a reason people go to places like Camellia Grill or wherever for late night, because if you seriously, the eggs have compounds in them that actually help with the hangover the next day. So if you're like, oh, I shouldn't, it's 2 in the morning or whatever time in the morning it is. In our world, it's 2 in the morning. But the eggs actually have compounds in them. So when you're looking at what to do the night before, stay hydrated, get the electrolytes in you. If you had the occasion to go somewhere for breakfast late night, that's going to actually be beneficial. And then there's actually a couple of supplements that have science behind it, that these can help if you're doing it actually before you go out. So this prickly pear extract, there's actually research that shows that this can help with a hangover the next day, 1,600 IUs, but you gotta know ahead of time that you're gonna be drinking because you gotta take it like several hours, 5 hours before you're going out. And then vitamin B6, this is one that, yes, there's research that shows that it helps with hangovers the next day, but if you look at how you have to take it, if you remember to take 3 doses throughout your evening of your vitamin B6, you're probably not drinking so much that you're really risking a hangover the next day anyway, because you got to be pretty diligent about that one. But these are 2 that are pretty harmless, and they have some pretty solid research behind it. Any questions on that, or any questions for Katie, and then I'll kind of go through the other part of this quickly. Okay.
Locally, Capital City Produce does a lot of our produce, and then we get a lot of stuff from Cisco as well. Yes. Most of our local, all of our fruits and vegetables from Capital Produce are local and organic from farms all over Louisiana. There's actually, I just switched out the local produce poster in the OR that tells every farm that we use and what we get from each farm. So.
Any other questions on that? With the share, her question was how much of it is local. Is anybody doing the Eat Local Challenge, or has anyone done that before? Are y'all familiar with it? Okay. If you're not, it's pretty cool, and if you're interested in kind of keeping things local, it's in June, and there's a group called the NOLA Locavores, and basically every June they have the Eat Local Challenge, and some people commit to doing 100% of what they do. There's kind of 3 different tiers. I usually do the middle tier. I don't do the full force 100%. That's hard, because if you think we don't have olives here, so one of the only oils you can get locally is pecan oil, you know. There's, oats, if someone likes oatmeal. Greek yogurt, you can make your own Greek yogurt, or there's a dairy in Mississippi, but it can kind of be challenging to do 100%. Salt is really hard to get. So I kind of do the middle tier, but the Eat Local Challenge is kind of cool, and there's a lot of support from the NOLA Locavores, and the restaurant program I was telling you about, the Eat Fit NOLA, we're actually working with them this year, so we've got almost 40 restaurants that if you go in right now, they have the Eat Fit NOLA, and I'll kind of go through the criteria again on that. But in June, we're asking these restaurants to also make at least one of those dishes local. So we didn't do that last year. We've only been around a year. But I think that's going to be really cool because they've got a lot of stuff that might be nutritious, but I think keeping it local. And I don't think it's going to be that hard for them because a lot of what's fitting the nutritional criteria is our local Louisiana seafood. They're getting their produce from our local farmers, so I think that it'll be pretty easy for them to have the majority of a dish be local. So Eat Fit NOLA is what I started out kind of telling y'all about, and Sodexo has tied in some of their dishes with Eat Fit NOLA. In a really quick nutshell, it's free. When you look at the menu, it has that seal right on there, so you know what it is. Like you're not having to guess. And what's been crazy for us is there's dishes that seem like they're healthy. So if you were going, okay, I'm going to try to make the right choice. There's things that, some of the things that read healthy on the menu, when we look at them, they might be 2 days worth of sodium and saturated fat, 1,500 calories in one dish. And so then we're looking at working with these restaurants and how can we kind of lighten these things up. And so we're really kind of taking the guesswork out of it for people. And so we use the American Heart Association's guidelines for sodium and animal-based saturated fat, no white carbs, less than a teaspoon of added sugar. So all those things we were talking about earlier of what to do to maximize your energy, these things are what those are. This is just a couple of our partners. We have, like I said, almost 40, but Sunray Grill, Yield Collagen, Appeline, Vega Tapas is a little bit far from here, but Fresh Bar, Magazine, like we said, Latai Uptown, Phil's Grill, like you would never think like these burger joints would have it, but Cheesecake Bistro and Copeland's, you would never think there wasn't anything there, but we worked with them to create new dishes, and they did a whole new menu that fit that criteria without the white carbs, the added sugar, and all that for us. So we're on like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and kind of like we'll be doing today with our giveaways. Every week we do giveaways. It might be anything from, actually this week we're giving away wine from Moises Winery. You have to be 21 to enter that contest, but we try to keep it to where whoever's winning that like whatever we're doing weekly. Like 2 weeks ago, we did Cool Brew. So we had like a case of Cool Brew that we did as the giveaway. So we always try to find things that are just things that we like, things that we can kind of stand behind and say has got whatever health benefit. So if you're at all interested in finding out what these healthy restaurants are around the city that are making it easy for you, follow us on any of these. And then also if you see something that's kind of our little Fit Fine giveaway of the week, it might be something that you would want to register and win. So we did a case of Iconic a few months ago. So we've always kind of got different things in there that we'll be doing. So any questions? I've got my contact information here that has my number and my email address. So if there's something you didn't want to ask in front of someone, in front of everyone, I'll stick around after, or you can always reach out to me later. But any questions for you guys? Katie or anything? Okay. You want to do our... Okay, so we've got 3 gift cards to Fresh Bar, and they're $10 each. So we'll start with that one. Has anybody been to Fresh Bar? Okay. Okay, 208-248. I'll read all 3 of them. 208, I must have grabbed these in order. 208-249 and 208-289. Do you want to grab them? Yeah.
Someone couldn't find theirs.
Cool, thanks. I know, huh? Which one did you have? What was your number? Oh wait, did I give you 2? I was supposed to just give you 1. Okay. Sorry. And which one is yours? 249. Okay, cool. And then we need to do another.
That's the same one here.
208-251. And then we've got $25 to Latai Uptown. 208-246. Have you been there before? Have you been there before? Awesome. I love it. Yeah. And then we've got 4 gift cards to Rouse's, but I couldn't get over there and get here in time. So those of you who I call your number, we can grab a pen or something. If you can write like a mailing address on the back of your ticket, it'll just be me who sees it. But and I'll mail you the gift card. But we've got, because Rouse's has given us 4, and then if you have your grocery list that you see that has the healthy items, it's all going to be there at Rouse's. But so yeah, these, if you can just put your mailing address on here. 208-227. Just your address. Yeah. Yeah, and then I'll just mail it to you. 208-287. 208-228. And 208-223. Cool. Let me get you a pen real quick. Yeah.
Somehow we managed to. Did you call 227?
227 and 228.
Let me see. I'll check
Yeah.
in a second.
Yeah. Let's see. Which one? Which one's gonna be?
Said it was called. We got 5.
Did I call 5? Okay, then we could do one. Who wants the Iconic? Does anybody? Okay. Okay. And then we accidentally picked an extra one, so she gets the case of Iconic. So, and then thanks guys, y'all been great. We'll stick around for questions and try your sample in the back.